So what's the first thing people search for when they're getting ready to relocate to a new area? Well, you guessed it, it's crime. Is this a safe area to raise a family? How does it look? How does it compare to other areas? So Granbury, when you're doing a search, you're going to run into a couple of questions where you're going to wonder, is this the best area for me to raise a family? Well, we're going to jump into that right now. If this is your first time to the channel, we really appreciate you tuning in, where we're going to take a look and give you some honest answers about whether Granbury is a safe place for you to raise a family and to relocate to. If you have any follow-up questions or want to chat with us, feel free to reach out to us, call, text, email. We'd love to visit with you and answer any questions you have. Okay, so is Granbury safe? If we go look at just the raw numbers, violent crime is 0.16% of the frequency rate, so it's very low. Property crime, 3%, so still quite low. So we're ranked 68th in terms of safety percentile, which means that we're safer than 68% of other cities around the country, so relatively safe. You might think, that doesn't sound that safe. Well, we're going to talk about one of the things that comes up when people do searches for Granbury and crime. Before we do, if you go look at other areas like Fort Worth and people relocating from big cities, crime and violence was kind of an everyday reality that many of them have to contend with, like homelessness and people walking around. So there is some issues that people have moving from those cities, and Granbury feels a lot safer when they move here. But when they do some searches online, there's a few things that come up that cause some questions and consternation, and we're going to jump into those right now. So the raw numbers show Granbury is relatively safe, but it doesn't show that it's like the safest city ever. And there's a reason for that. The main thing is when people do searches, if you have a population that shows 12,000 people and there's some crimes that go on, it doesn't take much for the percentages to really spike in a small town like this. However, Granbury has a population, really, Hood County is at 70,000, and most of those people live in Granbury. The issue is there's not inside the city limits, and so the population is actually much higher, and therefore the crime data and the percentages is based on population. It's what's in the denominator. It's how many people per the population. So if we take crime data per 12,000, then it seems higher. But if it was per 70,000, it would probably reflect much more accurately, in my opinion, the safety of just living in Granbury in general. So that is one aspect of it. That said, are there any areas where crime does tend to happen in Granbury? Well, yeah, there are some areas. And you can usually determine those by a simple drive through the neighborhood. You can see this is probably not an area that's going to be as safe as some of the other neighborhoods. So particularly, there are two neighborhoods known for being incredibly safe in Granbury. Two of them are Pecan, Plantation, and Cordova. But that said, really, like Water's Edge, Catalina Bay, all the neighborhoods that are located inside of the city limits, there's a very visible and present police force that's constantly patrolling around. There's just very little crime in general on anything inside the city limits in Granbury. Even moving into Acton, it's a very safe area with very little crime that we see. Police officers are usually patrolling really well. Like I said, they're very visible. So if you were to take Granbury and put it side by side with like Seattle, Portland, Austin, Dallas, some of these areas in California, I think that Granbury would show that we are much safer than a lot of those cities. So I would put Granbury up there as one of the safer alternatives. If you're talking about going and getting a 300-acre ranch in Montana, yeah, that's probably safer, than living in Granbury. It was because there's nobody there, so it's very rural. As far as like being pretty close to a metroplex, I don't know of a place that's safer, really, than Granbury in the Texas region. So I think that we compete very well in terms of our safety. With that said, some of the safety will depend on price point. So in Granbury, really the entry point to homes is like $250 to $300 is a typical entry point. So the average price point in Granbury is going to be a good bit higher than that. So that could be a challenge. If you find yourself needing to be below $250, you may have a hard time getting into an area that you might deem safe. There are some options for sure, but it's more challenging. If you're over 350, over 400, finding safe areas is not really an issue. So that's one thing that would be worth considering. So what about response times if we're in an area like this? Well, if you go get a 10, 15 acre ranch that's outside the city, maybe out in Toller, you're going to be having a longer response time, for police officers to get out there, or EMT or EMS to get out there. So you probably have a little bit more of a delay because of that. So that might be a concern for you, because safety might be involving health as well. We do have the ability to airlift people from Granbury to Fort Worth or Dallas, so there is that option. That's usually pretty cheap as well. I think CareFlight is one of the more popular resources that people use. And a quick little note, Pecan does have its own EMS, and fire, so we have incredible response times out here, even though we're far from the cities, because we kind of have our own Pecan EMS and Pecan fire set up. So that's one perk of living out in Pecan Plantation. But outside of that, the response times do get a little longer the further out you go in the Hood County in the city. So that is one consideration. So what's the bottom line? What does all this add up to? Well, what is it that keeps Granbury safe? That's an important question. And really it comes down to the community and the culture that's here. Home ownership rates. Most of the people here are not renters, or most of the homes here are owned by people that actually live in them and take pride in home ownership. And there's just a lower population density, so there's not a ton of people, millions of people like Fort Worth, but you still have access to a lot of it, so you still get a little bit of that rural feel of Granbury. So it's not just the fact that there's police here, it's just the kind of the social fabric of Granbury and the nature of the people that are here and the culture that makes it a generally safer place to be. So for the vast majority of people, retirees, maybe people looking here to relocate here with their families and raise a family in a conservative city, is Granbury a safe city? Absolutely. Especially if you're looking for a home that is going to be north of the 350, 400,000 range. It is one of the safest cities you're going to find in the Texas region. So that would be the final verdict. If you are a family or a retiree that's going to be north of 350 to 400, it is a great, safe option to relocate to. So here's your opportunity to ask some questions. What are some questions you have about safety or about things that are going on in Granbury that maybe we could help answer? If you got something, you can shoot it to me directly, or you can comment on this video and leave us some questions there. We'd be happy to try to put some stuff together and answer them for you. So I hope you found this video helpful. It's one of the questions that I think people really lead their search with, so we wanted to get to some of it here in a video that might answer some questions that you may have lingering in the back of your mind. And so if you have anything we can help you with, we'd love the chance to visit with you, chat with you. If we don't hear from you, hopefully we'll see you around Granbury sometime.